my name's Kevin. Thanks for joining me for episode 4 of my podcast series, Cybersecurity Kept Simple, 24x7, 365. I used to enjoy being labelled a hacker. For me, it meant somebody that could make a system work the way that it wasn't designed or intended to. I feel like the term hacker has been hijacked over the last few years and is now more commonly associated with criminality than it is with technology. In this episode, I'm going to break down the different types of cyber adversaries and provide tips that can easily be applied to reduce your risk of becoming a victim to any of them. Some of these adversaries are brutally efficient at what they do, as is evident by some of their earnings. Others are opportunists who actively seek weaker targets. And I feel that the scariest and hardest impacting cyber threats are hiding in plain sight and will be realised immediately prior to or during an unprecedented geopolitical event in the near future. When it comes to terminology, there are many different types of hackers. A common reference point is the use of different coloured hats to reflect the role played by that group. This seems straightforward enough, but perception can lead to different opinions on which colour hat is attributed with certain attacks. A script kiddie or a skiddy is a derogatory term used to define people that use scripts or other people's codes to hack computer systems when they really have no idea what they're doing. Enthusiasts, hobbyists, and hacktivists are some of the other well-known types of hackers. In my experience, enthusiasts and hobbyists are usually more interested in learning the technology and the different ways to exploit it without actually doing any real damage. Hacktivists are very common and can be a bit of a nuisance in terms of defacing websites and other types of cyber vandalism. During my research for this episode, I was and still am surprised at how many of these gangs are out there. Some of these groups are structured like legitimate companies, whilst others are structured more like traditional criminal gangs. Some gangs have been around and involved in different elements of criminality for decades before changing their focus to cybercrime. Many of these groups have evolved as a result of previous gangs disbanding, and a skilled cybercriminal in a protected nation is likely to have no problems finding a new gang to join. The risk of lone wolf cybercriminals and smaller, lesser-known cybercriminal gangs is one of the biggest threats to home users and small businesses. Whilst the better-known criminal gangs target those with deeper pockets, it is horrifyingly easy for a reasonably skilled cybercriminal to make a lot of money targeting the most vulnerable of us in society. Any soulless individual with no moral compass is likely to have great success combining social engineering followed by a malicious payload. This is the equivalent of a thief not only stealing money and jewellery from elderly ladies, but taking their most valued sentimental things also, such as photographs and irreplaceable heirlooms. I have been shocked at the amount of data dumps for organisations that didn't pay the extortion fees. These gangs appear to have no moral issues releasing these data dumps, some containing the most personal of information. The stealing and leaking of the most confidential of data is not only a deplorable act, it can and has led directly to the deaths of innocent victims through suicide. Commercially, the amount of leaked intellectual property and confidential company information could be massively beneficial to competitors. Most of the well-known criminal cyber gangs have rules forbidding affiliates from attacking post-Soviet countries such as Belarus and Russia. This aligns with many types of malware which are programmed not to impact machines set to the Russian language. Many of these criminal gangs justify their actions, at least to themselves, by blaming the victim. A direct quote from one of these groups is, "When companies neglect cybersecurity, we make them pay not just with ransoms, but with lessons they won't forget. We are here to enforce the standards they fail to uphold." In other words, they're judge, jury, and executioner. It makes me wonder if any traditional bank robbers have ever tried to justify their actions by claiming they only robbed the bank because the bank had poor security. The prevalence and success of ransomware has spawned other once needless professions, such as ransomware mediators. Some claim to be completely blameless in any attacks, but in my eyes lose all credibility when they also blame the victims for not taking care of security. It takes close coordination between multiple national law enforcement agencies to have any chance of success against what seems like a tsunami of cybercrime. Impressive forensic analysis has led to the seizure of a number of malicious sites, including some that host ransomware dumps. They can often identify some or all cybercriminals involved with their investigation. In many cases, these criminals are currently untouchable as they live in nations that don't speak to the West, such as Russia. Cybercriminals in nations such as North Korea, Iran, and Russia are often subject to international sanctions and face the risk of arrest if they leave their safe havens. Cybercriminals based in Western countries are not so fortunate, with many convictions and forfeiture of ill-gotten gains for those caught. Some cyber gangs rival traditional criminal gangs in earnings with far fewer risks. Today's cybercriminals that cannot be apprehended will continue to thumb their noses at the West until they are held to account. It's easy money, and it's up to each and every one of us to make it as hard as possible for them. Most people are probably familiar with nation-state intelligence gathering and spy agencies such as the CIA or the KGB. Many countries now have groups responsible for cyber intelligence and some that can deliver defensive and offensive capabilities. It is estimated that North Korea has more than 6,000 cyber agents dispersed among different subunits. The most famous of these, or the best well known, is Lazarus. This group's further divided, with some units dedicated to cyber espionage, while other groups focus on cyber heists and cyber crime. Lazarus was responsible for the technically outstanding Sony Pictures attack in 2014, the WannaCry ransomware attack in 2017, and an attack against the global banking SWIFT system that earned them a cool $81 million. Though considered a nation-state actor, Lazarus are essentially the cybercrime wing of the North Korean Reconnaissance General Bureau, or the RGB. It is estimated this group has stolen or extorted over $3 billion from a range of illicit activities. Iran have been linked to a number of cyber attacks over the past 20 years or so. The attack known as Shamoon is attributed to Iranian state actors and is mind-blowing in its magnitude. The victim, Saudi Aramco, were forced to replace 30,000 infected workstations after a targeted attack crippled the entire organization for a week. The timing of the attack and the code within the malware clearly indicated a nation-state being responsible. The intention not to steal or extort money for data, simply to overwrite the master boot records of infected machines and make data recovery impossible. Russia have different cyber units assigned to different branches of their intelligence services. The globally devastating NotPetya cyber attack is attributed to a Russian hacking group closely associated with the Russian GRU. The technically awesome Sunburst attack managed to backdoor 18,000 organizations, including US federal agencies such as the White House and all branches of their armed forces, as well as massive corporations including Microsoft and Intel. This attack is widely believed to be the work of APT-29, or Cozy Bear. China have a number of known state-sponsored APT groups involved with IP theft, espionage, and surveillance. They tend to go about their business a bit quieter than some of their neighbours. I personally think China's state-sponsored cyber groups are probably on a par with the best, given how well they appear to be doing with all aspects of their lives. America have proven themselves to be among the best offensive cyber nation-state actors, with attribution for the joint development and delivery of the technically incredible Stuxnet. This piece of malware is considered the world's first known cyber weapon. However, those same agencies that developed Stuxnet within the shadows of the NSA managed to lose highly destructive and secret cyber tools in what must be the biggest intelligence breach in American history. The group known as shadow brokers stole the tools and other highly sensitive information in circumstances which should have never been able to occur. And it is probably no surprise to learn that most security analysts believe Russian intelligence are behind the group shadow brokers. The leak of the NSA cyber tools had catastrophic consequences for the global population and caused a seismic shift in the balance of power between state-sponsored cyber groups. One such tool was Eternal Blue. This tool alone fueled North Korea's WannaCry ransomware attack, with estimated damage as high as $8 billion. It also enabled Russian state-sponsored cyber gangs to create and deploy NotPetya, with damages estimated to be up to $10 billion. In my view, the loss of these tools and the failure of the NSA to advise vendors of zero-day exploits as they were discovered shows an unimaginable amount of arrogance and an incredible disregard of any duty of care. It's incredible how many end-of-life systems are still online and exposed to the internet. Many thousands of devices are still vulnerable to being exploited by Eternal Blue and other NSA tools. During my research, I found loads of unpatched Windows systems, many still running XP, Windows 8, and Windows Server 2003. I should point out here that I am authorized and I do have permission to perform security audits on these machines. Using some of the leaked NSA tools, which are now freely available to everybody, I identified countless machines that were vulnerable and just a few mouse clicks away from being under my control. Having a closer look at a highly vulnerable Windows 2003 server confirmed what I had expected. Somebody has already compromised this machine. The file extensions .want_to_cry indicate the data has been infected with ransomware. It's definitely not a machine I want making a reverse shell connection back to me. The downside of having so many services available at our fingertips is that it massively increases our digital footprint and attack surface, providing more opportunities for criminals and other malicious actors. It's up to each individual to secure their digital persona as much as possible. We can't stop cyber criminals targeting us, but just as in real life, we should make it as hard as possible for them so that they will hopefully move on. That means finding any vulnerabilities or chinks in the armor before they do. I would suggest anybody with a small business or a home network to find out their public IP address and run a public scan, port scan against that. Thanks for joining me for this episode. I hope you found it entertaining and informative. Until next time, stay safe between the wires and don't be an easy victim for cyber criminals. Cheers!